My name is Julian Ryder, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of FullCircle, the proud sponsor of today's presentation with our 2024 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Matthew Rolston. It's a pleasure to welcome you here. For those who may not know us yet, FullCircle is a community of Art Center alumni, faculty, staff, and friends bound together by the three principles: engagement, interconnectedness, and philanthropy. Our purpose is to keep Art Center's creative spirit alive long after graduation by connecting alumni back to the college, to each other, and to the next generation of creative leaders. Through this community, we support scholarships, mentor students, and open doors that extend Art Center's impact far beyond our campus. In short, FullCircle is about creating the kind of connections that change lives. It is in that spirit that we are especially proud to celebrate Matthew Rolston. Matthew is not only an extraordinary member of the Art Center family, he is also one of the most distinctive visual voices of our time. Last night, at the Alumni Award Dinner, we honored him with Art Center's Lifetime Achievement Award, a recognition of his artistry, influence, and the inspiration he continues to provide to generations of artists and designers. This morning's program will unfold in three parts. First, a video presentation, then a 60-minute conversation with a distinguished cultural critic, and finally, a question and answer session where you'll have the opportunity to join the dialogue. To open this very special program, it is my great pleasure to invite Art Center's president, Karen Hoffman, up to the mic, who will introduce us to Matthew.
Hello, everybody. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to this FullCircle presentation and introduce the amazing Matthew Rolston, who really does embody everything that Art Center is about. Photographer and artist Matthew Rolston is not only an alum, but he teaches here. He's an incredible teacher of a course that you will see in this, and you'll hear more about that. He's mentored hundreds of students here to begin their careers. And of course, last night was incredibly special to recognize you, Matthew, for the Lifetime Achievement Award. You have certainly shaped really where photography, entertainment, and fine art have been going for the last 5 decades. It's remarkable. From Matthew's iconic editorial portraits and over 100 Rolling Stone covers to groundbreaking work in film, advertising, and fine art, Matthew's vision has influenced a culture on a global scale. Beyond his artistic achievements, Matthew has given back to Art Center as a teacher, advisor, and supporter of his ongoing scholarship, leaving an enduring legacy for generations of students. His latest project, Vanitas, the Palermo Portraits, is on view at our South Campus in our Mullen Transportation Design Center at 950 Raymond. It'll be on view through November, and I encourage you to take a look at the show there, as well as other multiple venues that Vanitas is being displayed. It is remarkable work. It is a fearless exploration, Vanitas, of the beauty, history, and meaning of life and death. To get the presentation started, let's take a look at the video commissioned by the college and Matthew's creation. It is something that you'll certainly see a few minutes of Matthew's history. So let's get started and let's roll that video. Thank you.
Maybe we should start at the end. You know I love a good contradiction. Here we are at a printing plant in Italy, in the town of Bolzano to be exact. And right now, the ink is hitting the page on my latest project. It's called Vanitas, over a decade in the making. It's a very theatrical take on the famous mummies of the Capuchin catacombs in Palermo, Sicily. I guess you could call this my capstone project.
You know, okay, maybe we do need to see how he got here.
Everybody comes to Hollywood. They wanna make it in the neighborhood. They like the smell of it in Hollywood. How could it hurt you when it looks so good? Shine your light now. This time it's got to be good.
My first semester as a photo student at Art Center was when the Elwood building opened. Guess what my joy of that first semester was? The visiting artist was none other than my hero, Richard Avedon. He put up a major exhibition at Art Center. Those Avedon images made a big impression. The contrast between what I knew of his fashion work and what some people said were rather cruel portraits opened my mind to the power of contradiction. During every break from Art Center, I would go to New York to visit my older brother, Dean, who had a very influential upstart art gallery called 56 Bleecker. Dean and his friends were very much into the downtown scene and the circle around Andy. Andy Warhol, that is. So I got to tag along to places like Studio 54. The folks who worked for Andy at Interview knew who I was. I was Dean's little brother, the photo kid. And all of a sudden, they needed someone to shoot a portrait for the magazine in Los Angeles. I got the call. Remember, I was still a student at Art Center, and a couple of days later, I was shooting my first editorial assignment, a portrait of Steven Spielberg, and from there, things developed. I started to work for Rolling Stone, ended up shooting more than 100 covers over the next few years. Then along came Harper's Bazaar, where I went on to shoot tons of editorial portraits. Then something began to shift. A few photographers began to direct music videos. So I went back to Art Center, enrolled in the film school for 1 year, and no matter where in the world I was doing photo shoots, I flew back to LA for class. I guess I'd call this period my MTV era.
Beyonce, can you handle this? I don't think they can handle this. Better move, speed ride. Look sexy, look fly. Baddest chick inside. DJ, Gemini, spotted me, a 10 thing.
People used to say, but what's your personal work like? I was taken aback at first. This work was personal, but then it started to sink in. It was time to commission myself. So I started casting about for a subject, and I happened to see an article in the New York Times about the Vent Haven Museum with the world's greatest collection of vintage ventriloquism dummies. This was it, my first self-assignment. The Talking Heads project became a fine art series of monumentally scaled, forensic-looking close-ups that explore the sense of life in these inanimate objects and to how we project our life force into images of humans.
Candy came from out on the island. In the back room, she was everybody's darling. But she never lost her head. Even when she was giving head, she says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side.
Beauty Light is a retrospective of my magazine work from 1988 to 2008, depicting some of the era's most talked about entertainers like Salma Hayek, Lenny Kravitz, Angelina Jolie, Penelope Cruz, Jack Nicholson, Beyonce. For my next fine art project, I wanted to question the nature of art making. So I returned to a childhood favorite, an art pageant that has been going on for 100 years in Laguna Beach, California. Called Pageant of the Masters, this became the Art People Project. Volunteers recreate works of art through tableau vivant. The project explores the transformative power of art and performance while questioning the boundaries between reality and representation. Hollywood Royale, another retrospective. This one of my first decade of glamour portraits. A postmodern reflection on the essence of Hollywood's golden age, featuring 1980s pop icons like Madonna, Prince, Michael Jackson, and Cyndi Lauper. Back in 1998, I established the Matthew Rolston Scholarship for Film and Creative Direction at Art Center. The college asked me many times if I would consider teaching. The answer was always no, but then my life shifted. I wanted to pass on what I knew, so I created a class called The Power of Pleasure that allows students to role-play the experience of working at a high-level communication agency. And one thing I know for sure, teaching is learning. Okay, here we are back at the beginning, or is it the ending? In a way, that's what these mummies do for me. They bridge a gap between life, death, and art. Photographing the mummies was strange, yes, but it was also deeply moving. In those faces, I saw both the fragility of life and the persistence of beauty. I discovered the vanity of so many humans and their desire to cheat death or touch immortality. There is no immortality. There's only eternity. And dust. My name is Matthew Rolston, and I am a proud alumnus of Art Center College of Design.
Can we see the extended version soon? Matthew, we are so incredibly honored for you to share your life's work in that short 7.5 minutes. And it just gives me chills. I kind of wish I was a little younger and could have been with you at Studio 54, but that's a whole nother story. We're going to have a great conversation, and thank you, Christina Binkley, for being here. An amazing journalist, art critic. This is sure to be a conversation that's going to be incredibly special for us here as we begin to wrap up our third day of our alumni reunion weekend. And Matthew, thanks again. We're so incredibly proud, and you're so well deserving of that Lifetime Achievement Award. So enjoy your conversation.
Hello. Hi. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming and joining us. I have told Matthew that my goal here is to hear as much from him, not just about his work, but also about himself personally, because this is an extraordinary person sitting in front of you. And I'll give you a tidbit right now and give it to him for a second. This is the only photographer I have ever known in my life who does not own a camera.
I haven't owned a camera for many, many years. But before I answer or respond to that, I just want to thank you very much, Christina Binkley, for being here. Christina is a distinguished journalist and author. She writes for the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, the New Yorker, and many other publications. We've been friends for a lot of years. She's also spoken here at Art Center with me before. I want to thank Julian Ryder and FullCircle Group and Katie Sprague for all that they do, especially with this weekend. And thank you, President Hoffman. Hail to the chief. So back to why doesn't a photographer own cameras? Okay. I transitioned from being a still photographer into a hybrid photographer director, not of movies, but of music videos and television commercials. When I go on a set, I don't own the Panavision system. I don't own the lights. It's all hired for the shoot. Exactly the same thing applies to my photography. I'm not, unfortunately for me, the kind of photographer that can just pick up a camera and walk down the street and make incredible art, like, say, alum Lee Friedlander, who's one of the greats of street photography and documentary. My shoots are a big production. Everything I do is a big production.
Yes, that is true.
I can't help it.
We're going to get to that later.
I was drawn that way. But so it does involve rentals. And what I learned, I owned cameras in the beginning when I went to Art Center. They lived in a safe. They constantly had to go and get repaired. and we had to rent them anyway. You had to be insured. It just made no sense to own them anymore. So I'm a photographer that hasn't owned a camera for 40 years.
He's also the photographer who taught me, the human who taught me. I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist forever. I made a smart comment to Matthew in some early conversation that the thing I liked about photography was that it was real. I knew that was the real thing. It really happened. It was like proof. And he rolled his eyes and said, I can make you see anything I want you to see.
You know, there is little or no objectivity in any part of human culture, let alone a photograph. The minute that moment is taken out of context, framed in that way, excluding the rest of the world around it, and taken from its time, it is no longer, it never was, and it will not be objective. Yet, we are hardwired through our survival instincts to, I'll believe it when I see it. Show me. Don't believe it. So one of the things I've said often is that my camera is a fabulous liar. And Richard Avedon, my big hero, said something similar. He said, all photographs are accurate. None of them are the truth. So always remember that.
We're going to come around later to his views on artificial intelligence, and you're going to see a connection there. But I want to start at the beginning. Let's talk about Warhol. Andy Warhol was your beginning. You learned something from him, I guess. Tell us about that.
Well, I was exposed to Andy in the world of his factory, which was not the aluminum foil covered one with Edie Sedgwick from the 60s. This was a much later, he had a series of factories. This factory was on Union Square. I think we have a picture of Andy at his desk. It was filled with antiques. It was a very sophisticated operation. He painted there. He actually didn't paint. He had people make the paintings for him. That's why it was called the factory. He had his magazine based there, his film studio. All these things were based in the factory on Union Square. And there was a circle of people around Andy, a lot of very talented people, a lot of very attractive young men. That's not a big surprise. And it happens that my brother, who had a gallery, as you saw in the video, Dean, my older brother Dean, was part of that circle, and so were his friends. So when I was at Art Center, every break from school, I would go and stay with my brother in his loft in downtown New York. I'd sleep on the floor, or if I was lucky, on the couch, maybe, and get to hang around with him. I had big dreams of working for magazines. I wanted to work for Harper's Bazaar. I wanted to work for lots of things. Some of those fantasies came true. But the beginning was Warhol, an interview. I got to meet Andy by being part of the entourage, going to places like Studio 54. I mean, Andy would go to at least 4, maybe 5 events a night and bring an entourage with him. He was like the most social animal imaginable. And so I got to meet a lot of people. They got to meet me. Got to meet the editor-in-chief of the magazine. And all of a sudden, a photographer in LA who was supposed to do an assignment refused it because he had a tiff with the art director. They cropped one of his pictures in the magazine without his permission. So they reached out to me, and it was like a lucky break. And I was shooting Steven Spielberg within a couple of days. Steven Spielberg was an up-and-coming director. He had just come off Jaws. That was a huge hit. And he was about to release Close Encounters. Maybe we can show that image, Jeremy, if we have it.
Yeah, talk about why you let him that way.
Yeah, even in the beginning, my work was somewhat conceptual. I wanted to make a comment about that person, maybe in a surprising way, or a way that would present an image almost as its own entertainment device. So that means research. Research is job number 1 for any creative process. So I talked to people about Mr. Spielberg, Steven, as they said then, people who worked for him. I talked to the magazine editor who's doing the story, and I was invited to a private screening just for me in a little screening room of Close Encounters. And so I decided to light him as if in the landing lights of a spacecraft hovering. Now, it's very subtle. It's just a lighting effect. But that is, in fact, conceptual. He also, we had a stylist and we had wardrobe for him. And when he came in, I decided, styling, let's not. Let's just let him be what he is. Let's not impose anything on this man. I liked how he looked, I liked how it felt, and hence the picture. That was the beginning of a conceptual approach to really everything that I do. I don't think I understood that fully. I just was doing things instinctively. I'm sorry about that. Let me turn this off.
But weren't you motivated by those photographs you'd seen in your grandfather's office? His grandfather was a well-known doctor to Hollywood movie stars.
Yes, Jeremy, let's show what my granddad's office looked like. Okay. So I think you're touching now on Hollywood glamour, which doesn't really apply to the Spielberg portrait, but there's a part of me that is very imbued in the history of Hollywood and that impossible glamour of the 30s and 40s. My granddad, my mom's father, was a well-known doctor. He was the chief of staff of Cedars of Lebanon, which is now called Cedars. But he had a private practice in Beverly Hills, and his patients were mostly stars from MGM, which insiders called Metro. So the Metro stars, like Joan Crawford, people like that, were his patients in the golden age, 30s and 40s. By the time I got to go visit this office, which was in the 60s, I was a little kid with my mom, and it was still decorated in that style. This is the waiting room. And in his inner sanctum, there would be beautiful framed pictures signed to him with big flourishing movie star signatures of stars like Veronica Lake. We could show that, or Jean Harlow. And that was my first exposure to Hollywood glamour, and I was completely entranced with the unreality and godlike quality or goddess-like quality of this imagery. So that was the beginnings of my attraction to Hollywood glamour. There's a few different threads in my work. That's a big one. It's not the only one.
It was before you had discovered Richard Avedon, I assume. You didn't know it as
No,
a child.
Well, at that age, no. But I did discover Richard Avedon as a child because our house had a lot of magazines. Growing up in mid-century America, magazines were the main form of media, the way that, say, Instagram would be today, or other forms of social media. And magazine culture was how pop culture was disseminated. And as it happens, my mom, who was far from a fashionista, but loved beautiful imagery and beautiful writing, she subscribed to Harper's Bazaar, which was the ultimate magazine. It was way ahead of Vogue. It's different today. But Harper's Bazaar was the prestige publication. Her mom had subscribed. She had subscribed since she was a teenager. She had a whole collection in our house of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and 60s. And I had my nose in them starting age a little bit after this, after the Hurrell discovery. I didn't know that was Hurrell, by the way. I just knew it was amazing.
Photographs.
Later on, I learned. But so I, kids of my generation knew like all the statistics on their favorite sports stars. If you had a baseball fanatic child, they would know the batting averages and the famous games and all that stuff, which I knew nothing about. I knew the masthead of Harper's Bazaar by the time I was 10 years old. I knew every photographer, every credit, every editor, Carmel Snow, Diana Vreeland, Lexi Brodovich, the seminal art director. So that's how I grew up. And I did know who Richard Avedon was from a very early age. So that obsession started very early on.
And don't you have a very large collection of Harper's Bazaar to this day?
I have all of Harper's Bazaar from 29 until now.
So you get it every month. You subscribe.
I hate to say this, but I recently unsubscribed. The state of magazines today, we can get to that later. It's very sad to me. We are seeing the death and rebirth of print magazines, and we can get into that if we have time.
Yeah, toward the end. We just had a lot of foretelling there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll
you've
see.
got a long career arc here. Let's talk a little bit. Well, I really want to hear you talk about glamour in the way that you see glamour.
Well, it comes from the Scottish word glamour, G-L-A-M-E-R, which means a spell of enchantment. There's nothing real or natural about the idea of glamour. It's, in my mind, related to, it's like a modern version of God and goddess worship, idealization. There's a lot of things to unpack about glamour, but one of them is that it's completely it's a complete constructed identity. There's nothing real about it. But because it's photographic, we want to believe it. We're hardwired to believe it, like I mentioned before. So that idealized skin, that perfect hair, that just heightened reality in photography glamour is something that I was extremely attracted to. I can't really tell you the reasons why, I just was. And I wanted to create it, and I got to create a lot of it.
I think you considered it ironic, though, didn't you?
My take on glamour, when I started to do those images for interview, we could maybe pull up Hollywood Royale and whip through a few of those, Jeremy. I should have introduced Jeremy Moline, is my executive assistant, my literal right hand. And he does amazing, amazing work for me. So this is a retrospective that was done about 10 years ago of my earliest 10 years in the business. And these images were, I would say, an ironic take on glamour, using really the postmodern movement of the 80s as my inspiration. It's hard to remember, but postmodernism, which started in architecture but filtered into the culture at large in the 80s, was appropriating the past to make an ironic comment on the future, or the now and the future. So Michael Graves' architecture of a modern building in Portland that had a portico that looked like a Greek temple, but it was in pop colors of pink and pistachio, was in the mood of the moment, and I was reacting to that in my time. So appropriating the guise of Marlene Dietrich on Madonna, let's show that comparison if we could. I used to haunt a bookstore on Hollywood Boulevard called Larry Edmunds Bookstore. It's still there. And I would buy vintage stills for inspiration from the 30s and 40s. They were just in a bin for $1 each or 50 cents each. Remember, there was no internet, okay? So that image is Marlene Dietrich. It's a publicity still. It's not a scene from the film, in Morocco. And it's a dramatic moment where she leaves Adolphe Menjou, the person next to her, for Gary Cooper, young and gorgeous, instead of Adolphe Menjou, older and rich. And she, they're not together in the scene in the film. In the scene, he goes to the dressing room of the cabaret where he's supposed to take her away. And she's written, "I've changed my mind, good luck," in lipstick on the mirror. Well, I thought that was an awfully good take on Madonna. Madonna was the shape changer. Madonna was the reinvention queen. At that time, every one of her songs, every album had a new look, a whole new Madonna. So I decided to, she was a vixen. She was and is a woman of tremendous power, more powerful than many men, a domineering, almost a dominatrix in her approach to gender roles, which she's known well for. I said, let's cross-dress her. That's the first time anybody had ever done that with her. Let's dress her in the style of Dietrich in the 30s. And that is not a picture of backstage. That is a set built of a backstage based on the picture from Morocco from Larry Edmunds Bookstore. I changed my mind, good luck, was really a way of telegraphing her point of view through me to the audience. You think you know me, Madonna, not so fast. I changed my mind. Good luck, here's the new me. Some other Easter eggs in that image, talking about irony. It says no smoking. She's smoking. It was shot with an 8x10 camera. If you saw the original print up close, you can actually read the cigarette, which is perfectly positioned. It's a Lucky Strike. And Lucky Star was the hit of the moment. So there was a comment on that. This must have had an effect on her because 6 years later, she appropriated this guise once again with David Fincher's famous video, Vogue. And even in the song that she wrote or co-wrote, it was Dietrich and DiMaggio. So this definitely had an impact. I'm not saying that she literally took this idea from this sitting, but it was in her mind. We all build on everything we've experienced. That's perfectly fine. But I think I got there first. So that makes this, in a way, sort of an historic image in terms of Madonna's evolution and mine.
Let's talk about Cyndi Lauper just quickly, because it struck me at one point, you made Cyndi Lauper a silent movie star.
I did. The reference was a Mae Murray image. Mae Murray was a silent star of tremendous glamour. So this ridiculous chandelier headdress, which came from the back stock at Paramount Studios Costume House. The thing is, the comment on my part, the ironic comment was, Cyndi Lauper, then as now, was anything but silent. This is a loud, outspoken New Yorker. She's got stuff to say. She's going to tell you, okay? So let's make her a silent star. That was the joke, the visual joke. And just an over-the-top kind of glamour that sort of looks like it could be from the 30s, but it also clearly is of the 80s.
It's fabulous.
Oh, and this is funny. The image on that side, I didn't know where that headdress came from. I mean, I knew it came from Paramount, but I didn't really know its history. Many years later, my partner Ted was reading the New York Times, and he saw that picture. He said, "Isn't that the headdress?" Because there was a revival of a comedy, kind of a silly sex comedy that Jerry Lewis did with Anita Ekberg, called Hollywood or Bust. And I saw the headdress.
Actually?
That is the actual headdress. So she was a kind of joke on Mata Hari. So even in the late 50s, when they made that movie, they were making a meta comment on the 30s. So I found out that history much later. So that was a good find.
That was a good find.
It was.
That's crazy,
Yeah,
actually. That's like completely nuts.
I know.
Are we ready to sort of introduce the 90s yet?
Yeah, let me say one thing about Hollywood Royale.
Okay.
Hollywood Royale was that group of retrospective. The title itself is ironic. I want to show you the El Royale Apartments. That's on Rossmore in Los Angeles, where Mae West and a bunch of other stars lived. So Hollywood Royale, referencing old Hollywood royalty, is the name of that building, which you can see any day of the week. And it was also a sly wink to Quentin Tarantino's movie, Pulp Fiction, in which the two main characters have a big conversation about how you call a cheeseburger in France. And it's called Royale with cheese. And isn't there something cheesy about the idea of Hollywood royalty? So that's kind of the insider joke to the titling of that project. It takes itself seriously, and yet it doesn't.
By the way, I want to actually talk about something that came up. I read it in a podcast when I was preparing to talk with you. You started your work in black and white, and then you went to color.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us just quickly about that transition.
Well, working with Warhol at Interview was a huge showcase. There weren't so many outlets. There weren't that many magazines at the time. If you were in fashion and portraiture, in elevated high style photography of that type, you either published in Vogue or Bazaar. That's kind of it. Okay. Along came Upstart magazine, Andy Warhol Interview, huge pages, and Andy himself was a lover of 30s and 40s Hollywood. Andy's superstars, his studio. He wanted to be Louis B. Mayer of the counterculture. Like Candy Darling was his Marilyn Monroe or his Jean Harlow, shall we say. So he collected Hollywood imagery, and as did I. So that was probably an overlap. I'm getting off track.
We're talking about black and white. You started
Yes.
in black and white because of Andy Warhol, but then somebody said something to you that said, oh,
Yes.
I got to figure out color.
All right. So black and white was a thing for my generation of photographers. Bruce Weber, Herb Ritz, myself, a few others. Black and white was of the moment of the 80s and into the early 90s. And I got some very big ad campaigns because of being published in Interview in black and white. It was a thing. I originated the Gap Legends of Style campaign. I did a whole bunch of advertising that was portrait-based, American Express, many clients in black and white. And I was starting to become pretty successful with commercial commissions. And lo and behold, my agent at the time called me and she said, there's a great portrait campaign. You're perfect for it at McCann Erickson, but it's going to be in color. They don't think you can handle that. And I thought, I was just stung. Okay, so that was in 1991, right when I was coming to Art Center to learn a new skill and become a director. I was being asked to do music videos. I didn't know how. So at that point, I taught myself about color. I really dove into color full bore. And you could see from some of those music videos how colorful they were, theatrical lighting, gel, saturated. I went wild with color. And that it also applied to my photography and my advertising work. So for example, the Sky Vodka campaign, which is all constructed sets and identities, and they would look like old Hollywood pop colors, pink skin and blue shadows and really over the top pop colors. That became a thing. I got a whole bunch of jobs doing that. 10 years later, a new agent, we'd moved on, calls me and says, there's this great job at McCann Erickson. You're perfect for it. It's a portrait campaign, but it's black and white and they don't think you can handle it.
There's a lesson about going all in there somewhere.
Oh, well, you know.
But okay, music videos. That's kind of out of the blue, isn't it? How did that happen?
Well, okay, let's talk about the lived experience as opposed to the results that a photographer creates. Okay, the result is the photograph, or maybe the result is the object, the printed page with a magazine, the actual photograph on distributed to the world, or the object is a music video on a screen, right? But there's the lived experience of meeting the people, working with the people, doing the work. And I was meeting great people for the covers of Rolling Stone. And that year I was in Art Center. Don Henley called me. We just done a big cover shoot for Rolling Stone. He said, would you direct one of my videos? And I had been at school for a year and I was ready. So my final project, I thought it was so cool, right, for Art Center, was a Don Henley music video. That's how that came about.
His career.
Okay, but
Steven Spielberg,
okay,
Warhol, that's when he's an undergraduate.
And that was it was a medium hit. Don Henley video, Last Worthless Evening, was okay. It did pretty well. It was in the top 10. But in my same class was Tarsem Singh, who did a little video with his friends called Losing My Religion for an unknown band that was a mega worldwide hit. So I'm not taking too much of a victory lap over this.
Okay.
But that's how it came about. And then all those entertainment clients asked me to do their videos. And I became a hybrid. And a lot of projects at that point, there weren't a lot of photographers that could translate the look of elevated photography to the moving image. Now everybody does it. So for some jobs, I would be hired to do everything. I would do the music video, the poster, the tour book, an advertising tie-in. I mean, just everything. I'd have a set with two different, I have a sound stage with the sets for the music video and a set for the still photography, and maybe a sound booth for radio recordings. And I just run those stars through all those gauntlets all day long. And same thing with advertising. So I started to sort of become a double, triple threat. And then that led to a lot of my clients asking me to rewrite the advertising. At that time, like I can remember Beyonce was doing fronting a L'Oreal campaign. And McCann Erickson had written these scripts for her to say, and they were very artificial, and they didn't sound like Beyonce. And the client said, Matthew, you've worked with her in music videos. You know her. Can you two sit down and write something that sounds like her? Sit with Beyonce during lunch, and let's rewrite this right now. So I did that. And that
Did she do that too? Did she sit down with you to do that?
Yeah, we did. It was
Okay.
very casual, actually. I mean,
Okay.
like, this is what they want to communicate. How would you say it?
Okay.
This is very matter of fact and friendly. And how can we make this clever? How can we make it funny, or stick to the selling points, but make it personal? And that led over time, just on the job training, to my becoming, in fact, a creative director, because I was asked to do it.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, clients started coming to me for that as well. So I was writing, producing, shooting, editing, just the whole schmear.
And then social media started. You actually, it was like a little stab in my heart. You said the other day we were talking about the advent of social media, which brought on another shift for you. And you said with the advent of Instagram and TikTok even, you felt irrelevant, which is hard for me to believe, somebody who's doing as much relevant work as you were.
Well, I felt that type of work for me was irrelevant for a few reasons. With the advent of selfie culture and Instagram and influencers, Kim Kardashian is in control of her own image, totally in control of it. It's every bit as mediated as something I would do. It's fully retouched, it's fully unreal, it's fully glamorous. But she doesn't need or want an outsider to interpret her.
Mm-hmm.
And the magazines, basically, let's just say they don't really exist anymore. They're just hanging on for dear life. And so Instagram kind of killed that practice for me. And I also felt that kind of been there, done that. I felt like I'd moved beyond that, and I needed to do personal things. I have had a wonderful career. I've been commissioned by some incredible people. But the more successful I became, the more money that was on the table for the media buy and all the stakeholders, the less creative freedom. The more people needed to tell me exactly when to jump and how high. And so I became an order taker, so to speak. And
Became a what?
Order taker.
Oh,
like, would you
okay.
like fries with that? And that did not sit well with me after a while. I just stopped enjoying it. And I decided to quit doing it. I'm not fabulously wealthy, but I had enough money to, shall we say, choose freedom. And at that point, I decided to self-commission and to do fine art projects, to turn to teaching at Art Center, which I'd always said I wasn't going to do, but then I started doing it, and I absolutely love it. That's 10 years ago, 12
Can you
years
talk
ago.
a little bit about the role your dad had in that?
Well, okay, so going back to 98, I finally achieved enough assets, not just talking about money and property, but like visual assets, my files, my digital files, my whole archive, to need to do something serious about that. I'd never had a will or an estate plan or anything like that. My dad is a business attorney, he's no longer living. He said, we've got to do your estate plan. And what bequests do you want to make and such? And I said, well, I want to leave some money to Art Center for a scholarship. And he said, well, why do you want to do that after you're dead? You can't have any fun with that. You'll be 6 feet under. Do it now. So I did. So in 1998, I created the Matthew Rolston Scholarship, which is now called the Matthew Rolston Scholarship for Film and Creative Direction. And it straddles a few departments. And so anyway, he said a year or two later, he said, how's it going with the scholarship thing at Art Center? I said, well, Dad, it's not that great. I mean, the students who receive it have to write me this obligatory thank you note, and they include a few photos of their work, and it's actually very boring. And he said, well, you got to change that. Just go to the school and tell them that you'll offer mentoring to the person who they choose. They don't have to take it. You don't have to give it. Make it optional. So I did that. And that turned out to be very, very successful. So the people who received my scholarship, which was one person at a time, and they would get it from 5th term until they graduated or left the school. That's how it still works. I would invite them to all of my shoots. They would be in every meeting. They would sit next to me. They would be next to the director's chair. They weren't going to be there to be a PA and put out lunch plates. What are they going to learn from that? They would sit next to me and listen to every single thing, including intimate interactions with the stars, with the clients, everything. I said, don't say one word. I'll say who you are. Just keep your mouth shut and pay attention. If you have questions, write them down. And during lunch or whenever, I'll explain. That evolved into saying, hey, don't just write down the questions. Why don't you make a documentary? Get your camera and let's make a little film about this shoot. And then that'll be a way for you to be on the set and have something to do. And you'll have a record of it later and we can look at that and interpret that. So that's how that happened. And Art Center took notice, especially the film department. And the then chairman said, would you consider turning what you know into a class? And the answer was always no, like I said in the video. I was much too busy and much too self-involved. And I'm not giving away my trade secrets to anybody. This is closely held. But then when I decided to step away from commercial practice, I had a different point of view. And now, so I wrote an original class. Art Center, you all know you're all Art Center people. Many classes are taught by professionals, not professional instructors, but professionals in the field teaching what they know to others. And I was ready to do that. So I wrote The Power of Pleasure. People think, oh, Matthew Rolston's primarily as a photographer. It must be a photography class. No, it's not. It's a communications class. And it circles around fashion, beauty, and luxury, namely perfume commercials. The students do unbelievable work. And I'll show you one of their spots. Let's look at one of them. Let's show, Alaya. I'll explain first. The concepts behind these commercials for fragrance is the name of the fragrance. That is the communication goal. This fragrance is called Nude. Okay? So how can you, I would say to my student, convey the word nude in a style that is appropriate for the brand of Alaya? It means you have to do a ton of research to understand the brand. As you know, Alaya came from Tunisia, which is the desert. It's Islamic culture. And the actual bottle looks like a Jalili window frame, which is also a reference to the laser cutting of his leather work. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs built into this piece. So this brilliant student wrote this. The students work, if the role play is we're an agency that specializes in fragrance advertising at the highest level. I'm its creative director and chief creative officer. They are my art director maker. Each of them work with me as their client, as their boss, just like professional practice. And there's an imaginary client that I've invented, in this case, the Alaya company in Paris. And the students don't work with each other. They work with me, each one individually. It's 8 students at a time, maybe 10. It's very intimate. It's just a wonderful experience. It takes a long time to put these projects together because there's research, there's development, there's script writing. It involves the use of existing materials. So they've got to do huge research into video and stills that they could repurpose. They got to write a script based on a strategy. It's complicated, but take a look at this piece. I think it's very beautiful. We'd like to have the lights down when we show this, please, and audio up.
Look how the wind forms the sand and makes it come to be. Look how we are molded into shape. Limbs and organs from sand and sky, etched in time, preserved in memory. Look at how we move, how we breathe, and how we run through time and space. Nude, a fragrance for women, by Alaya, Paris.
That's a pretty piece, isn't it? Great.
Pretty nice to come out with that in the portfolio for that student.
Yes, and there's a whole suite of works each student comes out with. There's a research project, there's a film that they have to make about the brand, a pitch deck, and then the final spot. So they leave with a real proof of concept to show in the future. I think creative direction is our future in every discipline, especially with the advent of AI. We're going to become idea and image engineers.
Which you have been doing with yourself since 2009 when you picked up the New York Times and saw that Talking Heads ventriloquist dummy
Yes.
article.
Okay, before we go to that, I want to show one more video because it's just, I want to give you a range because
Okay.
that was a very moody, poetic one, but there's quite a range. Let's show Gucci, and I'll explain about Gucci. It's called Flora. So research is always job number one. Does anybody know what Flora represents?
Well, I buy their Flora line.
Okay, but what is Flora? What does the word Flora refer to?
Oh, there's so many references that the word Flora could be referring to. It's almost unlimited, and it definitely conveys a sense of luxury first and foremost.
Well, Flora is actually the name of the goddess of fertility, and also the goddess of springtime, which represents fertility. It's also the word in Latin for flowers. This is a floral fragrance. And I said to my student, I want you to bring me a goddess. I want her to be non-binary. I want her to be dressed in vintage Gucci. I want it to be the color of the bottle. And please don't show me a white lady. Okay? And I want to have fun. This is for young people. I want to get 18-year-olds to buy this product with your project. That's the concept. And she went and did her research, and she went to Bloomingdale's and smelled it, and she came back and she said, it smells like candy. I said, well, make it candy. Make me want to lick the screen. So let's see if she achieved that. Audio up, please.
I would lick that screen.
Did you hear the cop cars on the way to shut down the party? This is a student, Hannah Aralana, who came from the photo department to my class, had never made an edited film before, taking my class. I think that's pretty exceptional for someone who's never done it before.
This is the point in the video where we go, we drag you into the future.
Okay.
It's actually the past now. Talking Heads.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually where I met Matthew. I met Matthew for the first time. He had photographed this. I always called it dummies. He does dummies to mummies.
That is true.
And Diane Keaton hosted at it was JF Chen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gallery. Sort of an opening. You had done a book of these photographs,
Mm-hmm.
and you had some large format photographs of them placed around.
Mm-hmm. We can show the image of the book, Jeremy, on the website.
Matthew was surrounded by people sitting at a table signing books, and I was just, I don't even remember I didn't know you, and I was attracted to whatever invitation had come. I thought, I got to go see this thing. And then I'm mesmerized by these I could not stop staring at these photographs. I couldn't even figure out why they looked so human to me. I ended up going home with the book, which you signed for me nicely, and somehow we just started communicating after that. But the funny thing is that this book came home to my house and sat on my coffee table and completely freaked out my entire family. Sometimes a little bit like looking at a car wreck, I think, where you can't look away. I find humor and loveliness, and this is where I want to transition. I'm going to shut up in a second, but you start to see in the work you're about to see from Matthew, all those years of filmmaking and color and portraiture, because he's still doing portraits, but now it's, in this case, inanimate objects that were never human. I will say also that I have one of these pretty large format above my desk in my office that becomes the background for all of my Zoom calls for the last bunch of years. And nobody ever thinks it's not a human being. Do you
Jeremy,
have Anonymous Boy?
Anonymous Boy is in the strip. If you
Is he in there? I have Anonymous Boy.
If you go
Anyway.
if you go to the image gallery, you'll find it, Jeremy.
People.
Oh, you have actually a side by side with the Avedon. Yes, let's look at that. Okay. Warhol, sorry. Yes, Avedon's
There.
picture of Warhol.
So this is a huge face behind my desk on my Zoom calls, and people, if they say it, sometimes I'll just see their eyes kind of looking off. But often they'll say, "Why do you have a picture of a clown behind you?" And I have to say, "It's not a clown."
By the way,
Anyway.
there's a dictum in art schools, maybe not this one, that if you want to be a successful painter, never paint clowns or dead bodies, which is exactly my subject matter.
Dummies to mummies.
So
Tell us why.
I mean, I've purposely chosen heated imagery for that to have that ironic quality. But I'm not interested in ventriloquism or dummies. I mean, I am now that I've learned more about them. They're quite fascinating. Art is a vessel of an idea. The idea that I was searching for a vessel for was the idea of projection. I was now at a point where I could look back on my career and start to reflect. In the early years, I couldn't reflect. I was too busy acting and reacting to reflect. Now there was some distance, and I realized that one of the qualities inherent in Hollywood photography, portraiture, or any depictions of a human, whether it's Christ on the cross, the statue of Buddha in an ordination hall, or any, we imbue our life force into imagery of humans. It's called projection. We don't know that we're doing it, but we do it. I want to explore that. So I was featuring several different ideas. There was a mannequin factory in Italy that I was pretty interested in. I went to visit. I went to various sites looking for subject matter. I discovered, quite accidentally, the Van Haven Museum through an article by Edward Rothstein in the New York Times. That was it. I went there 3 times to talk to them, to make a deal with them, to get access. And I realized this is so many layers of meaning, because a ventriloquist dummy is a creation by the ventriloquist who writes and creates a character, imbues it with life, projects their voice into the object, puts their hand into the body cavity and pulls out the levers to make it come to life. The audience suspends their disbelief for the sake of entertainment and believes that that is a living being. I mean, how many layers of projection can you get? This is a great subject. And I approached it really in a minimalist fashion, more inspired by the later Avedon portraits or the later Irving Penn work. It's a square image. It's one light source, one lens, one background. That's it. Can I create a powerful projection? And I think I was somewhat successful. Also, again, these influences are in me. They're not literal. But when you see the side-by-side with the portrait of Andy Warhol by Richard Avedon, I wasn't looking at that Avedon photograph and making my portrait. Afterwards, I thought, oh my God, that's where that came from. How many layers of meta is that? Or the one of Dorothy Parker by Avedon. Avedon's a big theme, okay? Let's look at Dorothy Parker and that one. So these were discoveries after the fact, but they were imbued into my personal creative DNA. So go ahead.
We fast forward. So he's sort of foretold that he's shifted his career now. So now this is him commissioning himself. This was project number 1. Mm-hmm. I think maybe a year or 2 passed and we didn't communicate much. And I suddenly get a call from Matthew and he says, "Have you heard of the Pageant of the Masters?" No, I've never heard of the Pageant of the Masters. It turns out it's this tableau vivant event that has been going on since the turn of the 20th century, roughly.
For about 100 years.
Yeah. In Laguna Niguel. He invites me to come down and we see this thing. It's sort of like the Hollywood Bowl, only a little bit smaller. And they reenact artworks with human beings. It's the weirdest, strangest, most wonderful thing you can ever. They do it every summer, and I definitely encourage you to go.
Oh, go! It's fantastic.
But it turns out that the reason I got the call from Matthew is that for 2 years, I think at that point, he had been trying to get them to allow him to photograph the actors in this, and they were very sensitive there. They were afraid of people making fun because it is a little. People have made fun of it. And he wasn't getting in. So he had this great idea. I was, at the time, a long time at the Wall Street Journal. I can't remember exactly what my job at the time was, but something to do with fashion. And he said, "Why don't you hire me to photograph? And you could do a story on this." In which I go to the editors, and our art director is like, "Matthew Rolston's going to do photographs for us for a $500 day rate?" She almost fell on the floor. The answer was yes. Then he says, "And I'll also do a video which is on the Wall Street Journal website, and it's fantastic, and I encourage you all to go find it. And then I start getting phone calls from the folks in Laguna saying, your photographer wants to come and pull a truck in full of equipment. They were a little weirded out about what the Wall Street Journal was up to. And I tell you all this because I want you to know that this is how he works. There is a diabolical plan, and it is a long-term plan, and it doesn't matter if it takes 10 years, he will get to it. Now, you tell us about why.
I don't always succeed, but I am somewhat determined. You said the other day, if you can't get in the front door, you go to the back door, climb the window, go to the basement, up to the roof, get in there somehow. So I had been approaching the Pageant of the Masters for quite a while, wanting to photograph the participants because I started, the theme of my art was being revealed to me, which I now know through greater reflection, is actually human imagination. That is the thing that separates us. That's what makes us human. Our realities are completely imagined. Art is imagined. Money is imagined. The way we approach time is imagined. Religion is imagined. So I wanted to go to the source of one of the greatest imagined realities, which is creation of art. And I wanted to do portraiture that would be a vessel for that idea, just like the dummies. Well, I thought, well, these people in their makeup who are enacting artworks, we should show Marshall Weissman and the painting if we could. So I was determined to get in there. I'd gone to that show as a little kid with my family. It was a formative experience. By the way, it's like an art history lesson. The voiceover, which is this beautiful baritone voice and an orchestra, it's like a Broadway show. You're really learning about the history of art, but it's meant for families and kids and a lot of people who don't go to museums or know anything about art. It's a popular entertainment. And I was fascinated by that showmanship, and I go there every summer now, and I've met everybody there now, thanks to you. And I see the 8-year-old version of me today, and they're just like fascinated, and it's just so wonderful. So I knew this was the perfect vessel for the idea, but they would not have it. I had to go through. I wrote to the board directors. I wrote to the president of the association. I didn't even get a response. I kept writing. I finally got, no, we're not interested. We were getting these requests all the time. We don't want to show the magic of what we do. Sorry, forget it. Don't do it. We're not doing it. And I just gave up for a while. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to call Christina. Maybe she'll let me shoot something and that'll get me in the door. And it did. And the reason I agreed to do the video for nothing is, again, a lived experience. When you interview the director and writer of the show, that's a conversation. You know, you're not hearing my side of it, but I'm there conversing with them and filming them, learning about their project, learning about what they do, and having an actual meeting of minds. It turned out that Diane Chalice-Davy, who's been the director of the show for many years, I mean, these people are art experts. They do a show every year on the history of art. They know everything. Okay, they really do. And so Diane and I struck up a friendship, and then I campaigned. Every two more summers of going down and having lunch with her and showing her Avedon pictures again, and all my ideas and a pitch deck. And she finally went to the board and just, twisted their arms, and I got a yes. And so then I was able to shoot there, and we shot during one summer show backstage. The only time the performers are in makeup is when they do the show. So we set up a huge photo studio in the scene dock because they'd already built the scenery. And as they came off the stage at intermission, I would get 5 people, and at the end of the show, 5 people. And that took a week because they had 100 performers. And so they agreed to let me have access, and the volunteers who perform agreed to participate, and that's how that came to be.
There's a website, right?
This is the website.
So you can go to the Art People website. We have 12 minutes, so I'm going to rush you through.
Okay.
But before I want to talk about, we're gonna come around to Vanitas, but before we get to that, I want to talk about AI, because we mentioned you can make us believe anything just with lights. He doesn't need AI, but you're using AI in your class now. You've been for at least 2 years having your students do it. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about how you see, and I'm going to frame this. He is very optimistic about it in terms of what Matthew does. Talk to us about.
Optimistic. Look, AI is an incredibly powerful tool. It might be the most powerful visual creative tool in the history of mankind. It certainly is in my lifetime. I mean, is it more powerful than the invention of writing? Maybe not, okay? But it's up there, all right? Powerful tools are neutral. They're neither good nor bad. It could be used for the greatest good, the worst evil, and something mediocre in the middle. It's what you do with it. But it is clearly the future. AI was made by us. It's not the other. It is us. It is not us. Okay? It might be our evolution. It might be pointing towards the singularity where we become pure thought. But we are making it. It is us. At the moment, it's a tool. We may become its fodder. I don't know. It could ruin civilization. It could kill organic life forms, you know. But how different is our life form now if we believe Darwin's theory of evolution? If we began as a single cell amoeba, and then the reptile climbed out of the slime, and then they were primates, and here we are. Well, maybe AI and pure thought is a further step. Why not? We're very different in form from the way we believe we began. So anyway, AI is the future. I mean, my students I'm old, and I'm interested in it. My students are like old fogies. They're like, no, it's all derivative, and I don't like it. I'm like, oh, derivative? You've ever heard of Andy Warhol? Derivative? Do you think that Raphael didn't borrow from Michelangelo? Human culture is built on everything that came before. It's an accretion. And yes, people put things together in new ways and come up with original ideas, but we can't discount the fact that there's no romantic idea that a brand new idea comes out of nowhere into someone's mind. It just doesn't work that way. That's a silly and ill-informed view. And I say to my students who somewhat object to it, I said, so 1929, that's the year that sound pictures started. Are you going to be that person in 1929 that said, this sound stuff is bullshit, silent film forever? You know, where did that get them? Okay, so let's get with the program. Okay, let's start to learn right now what that means. And the advantage that you have of being an Art Center student is that to do AI, or to make any form of art, well, you have to have your history. You have to have a frame of reference. You have to have deep knowledge of your subject. You have to understand concept. You have to have practical hands-on information. Like, how do you make a photograph in order to direct the machine and tell it what lens, what lighting, and everything else that you want it to do? Yes, AI is a kind of slippery slope. It's a paradox. It lowers the bar and raises the bar at the same time. It lowers the bar that anybody with a few prompts can make a pretty decent generic image. So how much harder is it to make a breakthrough image? Okay, but it will put paid to the middle of film and photography production. There will be, look, it's not either or, it's yes and. There will still be organic photography, there'll still be real film being made, but there will also be hybrids and all kinds of other ways to create imagery. So in our fragrance class last semester, we chose nuclear fragrances, alien crystal essence, and this is a print campaign that my students created in their bedrooms in Pasadena over a week or two. And take a look at this stuff. Do you have the whole board? No, sorry. That's these are billboards. They had to do a print execution and a billboard. These are not photographs. I mean, it's pretty obvious they're highly stylized. You could also create AI that looks completely real, but alien being what it was, we wanted something, you know, otherworldly. So we gave them a very detailed deck, as an agency would, commissioning an AI image engineer. So there were specific colors, forms, seed imagery, tons of seed imagery. It isn't just about prompts. It's what you feed the machine. And using several different image generators, then taking it to Photoshop. To do AI well is actually pretty complicated.
Can you show us what Matthew's favorite AI image? What's the name of it?
Oh, what I think is the most important
Yes.
historic AI image? It's Boris Eggleston's image. I can't remember the title of it.
That's
it is
AI.
this image. This is an important historic image because this image won the Sony World Photography Competition in the Open Creative category as a photograph. And Boris, who's a German artist, went to the ceremony to refuse the award on stage to make a statement about the advent of this new technology. And this is a fabulous photograph. I mean, this has echoes of Irving Penn, has echoes of Julia Margaret Cameron. This is a well-informed, sophisticated artwork. It's quite fascinating. It's quite poetic. So this is historically, I think, the moment that the world said, oh, AI is going to be taken seriously. You know, the prejudice against AI, not just like silent films, it's like photography being regarded as fine art. Only until like maybe the last 40 years has photography been elevated into the museum world of fine art.
You've been fighting that your whole career.
The fight
At
was
least the latter
really,
half of it.
yeah, I have, but I think the real fight was a generation before me. That was Irving Penn and Richard Avedon and their generation. The mid-century greats broke through into fine art.
Let's skip ahead quickly because I want to get us to Vanitas. We cannot not talk about Vanitas.
Yeah, and we want some time for Q&A as well.
Yeah, you want to mention your foundation, but Vanitas is, when we skip up to this, you saw some hints of it. It's horrifying. It's terrifying. I didn't understand what it was you were up to when you were describing before you went off to photograph this thing. I didn't fully grasp it until you came back and started showing me images, which were not as big and clear as this. Tell us why on earth you want to photograph dead people and make them as lovely as one can make dead people. And by the way, it's colorful too, because that's not, if you walk into this perp, that's not what you're going to see. You colorize that somehow.
That's through lighting, not colorization.
Well,
this is it's the most complex lighting I've ever done in my career. It involves 3 wavelengths of light: blue, yellow, and black light combined. Black? That black light.
Oh, black light.
Yeah, makes colors fluoresce, certain compounds fluoresce. That's how these colors came to be. Again, human imagination, I now know, is my subject. Beyond what tops art as a vessel of human imagination? Anybody? Which is part of what system? Religion. Yes. Religion is a completely imagined condition that humans have made, and they believe in it devoutly as a bulwark, in my opinion, against the fear of the unknown. None of us know why we're here, where we came from, and where we're going. The Pope says he knows. That's based on faith, not empirical evidence. That doesn't make it not valid, and I'm not criticizing anybody's faith. I happen to believe in God deeply. I don't much like religion. You know, God made humans, humans made religion. I don't trust humans. I trust God, okay? So humans have made these religions and philosophies as a bulwark against the fear of the unknown, the fear of death. It's called death anxiety. It has a name. I read several books about this subject, and I decided I wanted to take on the big question at this late point in my life of why we are here, the existential questions of life. And I was looking for a vessel of that. And there's a reason. Because of this fear, which is so innate, it's not in every culture, especially strong in Western culture, this fear. In Hinduism and Buddhism is a different approach. And many other, Zoroastrianism, I'm not an expert on comparative religions, but I've done some reading on the subject. We're willing to kill each other to protect our imagined reality. That's what this comments on. This attempts to say, with heated imagery and a heated approach, maybe even a controversial visual approach, we're all going to the same place, but none of us know where it is. So shouldn't we gather together? Shouldn't we unify? We're all more the same than we are different in this subject. The day you're facing death, you'll be praying to something, generally speaking, okay? And why kill each other? That's every religious war, including the ones that are going on today. So it's to draw attention to that. There is a political intent behind this. What is the controversial approach? Well, let me put it this way. What's a guy from Hollywood, like Beyonce to dead bodies? What? You know, I wanted to take a horrifying subject and treat it with as much beauty as I could possibly inject into it. This is, I think, the most complex beauty lighting, if you like, that I've ever done on a horrifying subject. That is a cognitive dissonant approach. That is a complete contradiction. And that's one of the things that people find disturbing and attracting. I am repelled and attracted at the same time. That's an interesting condition that should provoke a discussion, and I hope that it does.
I want to reveal your secret sauce before we turn it over to questions for everybody.
Sure.
So there's this thing that Matthew has called Rolston's Rules of Engagement, and there are what, 5?
Mm-hmm.
5 of them. Can you run them through quickly, and then you'll have no more secrets to reveal. Everybody can do it.
Might have a few. Okay. these are a rubric that I teach my students by which they should judge their work and any work that they experience on any level. And I invite you to think the same. Number one, and they're in order of importance. So number one with a bullet, as they say in rock and roll, is never be boring. Why is that such an important dictum, do you think? Okay, here's the reason. What is the most valuable thing that we have? The thing that we know we have less of every day, but we don't know how much we have. Time. What do we say when we don't like something? What do we tell our friends? Don't waste your time. It's a total waste of time. Time is precious. If I give you my time as an audience member, do not bore me. My time is valuable. Okay, and I will diss you if you do that. Okay? There is an unspoken contract between those who create media and those who experience that media, whatever it might be. Now, you could go against the grain. You could be purposely boring to be provocative. Andy Warhol did a film called Sleep, which is 8 hours of one person sleeping. Could that be more boring? Okay, but he's being provocative. He's attempting to comment on that rule. So never be boring because our time is valuable. That's number one. Okay, unless you want to be boring to make a statement. Okay. Number two, use contradiction and mystery to create engagement. Contradiction is the secret sauce. That's what I talked about, beauty and the grotesque at the same time, cognitive dissonance. We can't hold two ideas in our mind comfortably at the same time. But under certain conditions, it's very pleasurable. Like going to a horror film as a first date, right? You're scared to death, but you cling to each other. That's the fun part. But you know you're sitting in the multiplex on Sunset Boulevard and nothing bad's going to happen to you. That's a contradiction. Avedon's photograph of Devima with the elephants, wild animal, sophisticated model. I mean, contradiction with high style is the secret sauce. Mystery creates engagement because we want to know the answer. The audience is in the position of wanting to know at all times. You can withhold that information, dole it out in little bits, give it all away, whatever it might be. That is part of showmanship. Number three, save the best for last. I actually learned that from Andy Warhol. When you go on a date, do you save the best for last?
No.
Right. Well, maybe you do that first, and then the best part is talking after. I don't know.
Ew.
But showmanship. Every film saves the. How can I put it? We search for meaning. The meaning is always at the end of the sentence. Have a nice day, ? Does not mean the same thing as have a nice day, ... It doesn't mean the same thing as have a nice day, period. It doesn't mean the same thing as have a nice day, ! We find meaning at the end. Save the best for last. Give the audience its meaning at the end. A joke means nothing without the punchline. No matter how fascinating the setup is, the punchline is where meaning is delivered. Save the best for last. The next one is always leave them wanting more. Let's go back to that date. You went on a date and you had a great time. And then you each said to each other, that was so great. I got everything I want. I don't ever need to see you again. Thanks, bye. Okay. Always leave them wanting more. That's every sequel, prequel, second edition of the book, whatever it might be. We give our audience a lot of satisfaction, but we leave something behind. Okay. And the art that conceals the art is the greater art. Once again, a simple explanation of that is if you know how the magic trick works, it's not magic, right? It's like that idea, what's the word, sprezzatura? The nonchalance, the idea that no effort is shown. That takes sophisticated practice, okay? The other example is the swan, gliding effortlessly, but underneath. Okay, so it is much harder to conceal the art within the art, and that is a sophisticated practice. So if you take these dictums and really think about them deeply, and they have a lot more layers of meaning than I was able to get out in this couple of minutes, this is the rubric to which to judge your work and the work that you take in. Was it boring? Was I bored? Or was it boring and that was interesting, therefore not boring? Was there contradiction and mystery that intrigued me? Did they save the best for last? Did I get the meaning at the end? Or was I denied meaning and now I'm even more engaged? Did I want more? I hope so. And did I see the magic at work? Not until I analyzed it, I hope. So that's what I call Rolston's rules of engagement.
Okay, so here's a challenge for you all, because he's just admitted that he's concealing some of his secrets. We have about 10 if they let us go over 15 minutes for questions.
You know, before we go to questions, because we do have a little bit more time, I want to deliver a little more entertainment, if I may.
Oh, well,
Why not? Okay.
you're going to dance?
So people, no, I'm not going to dance. I'll do the closest thing I can to a dance. I've created a lot of music videos back in the day, about 100 of them, and about 200 commercials. So I've been on a lot of sets, come up with a lot of ideas. I'm going to show you video now because people think of me, you know, Beyonce, pop music, but I like all genres of music. And this is for a band called Garbage, who I was obsessed with. I love Shirley Manson, who was their lead singer. This is a low-budget video. There's nothing in this video. There's some Mylar, a white wall, some great lighting, and a lot of photographic imagination. What can I do with just a lens and editing in an exciting way? So I had already met Shirley Manson. I shot her for Rolling Stone, and she requested me for this video. And we first met a few days before production. She's such a fun, kick-ass Scottish gal. And she did some trick with her feet where she tripped me and threw me to the floor and then jumped on me, straddled me and held me down. And she said, "Okay, director, I want you to make a video that makes every teenage boy in the world want to me." Okay? And I'm held down. I'm just like, well, should we maybe, would you like to have a jeweled vagina? Would that work? I love it. Okay. So, I mean, that was the fun of that conversation. So if you think that I can't rock out because I'm all pop music, this will put paid to that. And let's enjoy a little rock and roll, low budget video. Then we'll do some questions. Audio up, please. Can anybody here stick their entire fist inside their mouth? I can't do that. That's Matthew rocking out with his you-know-what out. But by the way, all of those effects are in camera. That is not special effects. We didn't have any money for special effects. That mouth, we literally built a black screen and put a plastic magnifier in it.
Do you remember what the budget was?
No, but it was very pitiful.
Well,
Like what?
like what's pitiful? I mean, because you've done.
I mean, pitiful today and pitiful then is something else.
Yeah.
My big videos, they'd spend $1 million. This is probably $100,000
Okay.
for 2 days of
That
shooting.
doesn't sound very pitiful by these days.
But today, the whole economy has changed. Okay, but at that time, that was a very low budget, and I put my fee back into the project as a show because these pieces are showcase.
Yeah.
On MTV, your name is on there, you know. So that's where advertising came from. Same with magazine work. You don't get paid well for magazine work or music videos. And if there was a fee, I just put it back in so I could have more time to shoot or build another white wall or whatever. So I did that for free. But psychic wages were, fantastic. And I got to play with Shirley Manson, who I just loved to death.
Ask him questions.
Okay, before you ask
You
questions,
need mic.
there is a mic over here that you have to approach, and I want you to think of these words: who, what, where, when, why, or how. That should start your question. Why did you? How did you? Where did you? Who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay? Just start a sentence with that. Come on down to the mic. Come on. Don't be afraid. And feel free to challenge me, please.
Have you ever worked with Hank Corwin?
I have never worked with Hank Corwin.
You should have worked with Hank Corwin.
Oh,
Are you aware of Hank Corwin?
I know that name. I'm blanking on who he is.
He's the editor of choice for. Now I'm blanking out. The guy who did Oliver Stone. Thank you.
Oh, he is an amazing editor. Yes.
Hank is a collaborator. I think you two would get along quite well together.
Well, I'm out of that business now, but
No,
thank you.
well, he might have had a different approach to this. Not that it would have been better; it would have been different, and it would have been maybe challenge or intriguing in a whole different way. This is one approach, which is wonderful. It would be interesting to turn that footage over to Hank and see what Hank would do with it.
There's an infinity of ways to do
It totally.
Of
It was
course.
just. It might have been maybe it's a possibility to explore. That's just a.
Thank you for that. Yes,
Of
I
course.
now know I exactly know who Hank Corwin is, and when I do edits for these, I'm deeply involved in the editorial process. I'm there all night, every night, and I talked to Steve, the editor I work with for the video that you saw today, and Steve said, "You're one of the only people that come into the editing room anymore. The young directors they're too afraid to even talk to me. They just want to give notes." And that has a lot to do with just the dislocation through social media that young people are engaged in. I mean, not people in this room, but a lot of young people can't make a phone call. They can't have a face-to-face conversation. It's just too challenging and intimidating for the social contract for a lot of people. The plus side of that, I would say, is that I see a tremendous amount of tolerance and kindness in my students for each other. When we did critique at Art Center in my day, it was vicious. Now no one will say an unkind word. That's kind of beautiful to me. So it goes both ways.
How do you know what's worth caring about, especially when it's in a video or for taking a photo?
How do I know when what's worth caring about? Well, I won't take on a project unless there's something about it that I care about deeply. I have to say that might be the budget or the money. Sometimes I don't do that anymore, but I often said to my agent, "Darling, we know what I am. How much they got? Cut the crap." But no, honestly, I have to be deeply engaged in a project to take it on, or I wouldn't do a good job. And I've taken on some projects that were good business where I really didn't have a feel for it, and they were every time a disaster. I can't work well with children, little children, for example. Like my friend Peggy Sirota, the photographer, she's a mother, she loves children, she has such a humanity, right? I had to do some cookie commercial that they want, and it was a good reason why they hired me. It was a music video dance piece, and they wanted kids to be like hyper wanting cookies, dancing around, and they wanted it to be very playful. And I can deal with adults. I'm a good director of adults, but with kids, you can't give direction. You have to play with them. If you want a kid to run up to a mark and laugh and fall down, you could tell an actor to do that and work that out with a choreographer and make it perfect. You can't do that with a kid. Have you seen what kids look like when you ask them to smile? It's horrifying, right? So Peggy approached the great director of children. She would run around the set and chase them, and she'd have the camera stashed, and she'd know the moment. Okay, she'd get it by playing with them organically. I can't do that. I chose this commercial because it was a huge campaign, and I failed miserably. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Hi. Oh, it's very tall.
You can
I'm
turn it
very
down.
short. And I
Oh,
just
uh-oh.
out. Sorry.
It should
We'll,
just bend
we'll
down.
get you
yeah.
some
I'll
help.
hold it. Hello.
Hello.
So my only question was, who is maybe a female photographer that influenced you or artist?
Oh, so many. These are going to be a little bit obscure for you, but because this is from a long time ago. Madame Yvonne. Would you pick? Go on. Yeah, you'll understand. It's Madame with an E, and Yvonne is Yvonde. British photographer, very eccentric, from 1930s. When you see the use of color and goddess imagery, you'll immediately see my music videos. So when I said I was really studying color, this is one of the artists. There's many female photographers that I've been interested in. Let's see what you got here. Okay, there's Madame Yvonne. That's pretty fabulous stuff. Look at that blue. See a little Matthew DNA in there? Okay. So that's one. Okay. Thanks, Jeremy. He's like my DJ, my visual DJ. Thank you, Jeremy. All right.
Hi, Matthew. It's a great privilege to be here. And I want to thank you for taking the lead in AI imagery. My name is Safine Milan. I'm a commercial and fine arts photographer, and I have also been using AI imagery in my recent works. So, is this on?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
I'm
we hear
deaf,
ya.
so I'm not sure.
Loud and clear.
So I want to ask you the same question that people have been asking me about my work and AI art. And you mentioned earlier that it's a tool, and it depends on how you use it. And it can be used for good, it can be used for bad, and it can be used for nothing. Yeah. So everybody knows that deep fakes are a big threat to our future. But besides deep fake imagery, what are some other examples of dangerous use of AI art that you are concerned about and that you think the next generation of image makers need to be aware of when we are going to take on AI art to the next level? So what do you warn us?
It's the same thing I would warn any image maker. It doesn't matter if it's AI or organic photography. We have a response. If we're going to make mass communication, which is what I assume you're learning at Art Center. By the way, you should take my class. I'll do it again next fall if you're still here. We have a responsibility. Are we going to model negative behaviors, damaging behavior? It doesn't matter if it's AI or with a camera. Are we going to show violence perpetrated on people that are weak? Are we going to take advantage of people's ignorance? I mean, we can't do those things. So if we're using AI to do that, that is the greatest evil. Deep fakes, well, like I said before, there is no objective reality in a photograph or an image, so you better suspect everything. We can enjoy an expressive truth, but there is no objective truth in any image ever. And if you believe that, you need to closely examine your thoughts about what imagery really is and how it functions. No, I was told we could have this room for a bit longer. Yes, we can. We got time. Q&A are the best. Okay, this is, you really get stuff out of me that, like Christina did, that's just totally spontaneous.
Hi, Matthew. I'm Paul Hing. I was a copywriter at Saatchi & Saatchi. You shot one of my campaigns back in the, I believe, early 90s for Toyota Tercel. A woman sitting on a stack of newspapers, and there was another one. But my question is, when you enter a room and you do portraits, how do you start with the lighting? What do you do?
Well, you know, I believe in research. As I said, that's job number one, and a great deal of preparation. I come fully loaded. I mean, I've got 20 scenarios, all the sets and props and everything arranged. And then if it's a celebrity shoot, not an advertising shoot, I'm going to take that person who probably knows nothing until the day they arrive because they're too busy, through all the ideas, and we're going to collaborate together. And I mean, I got ideas. Okay, I don't have one way of doing things. Like that Jim Carrey shoot that you saw in the video, where he had like it was like mug shots, and his mug shot was over his crotch and it had like an erection, right? He and I thought that up on the day, and the art director, like my set designer, built that piece. We already had a mug, thing, but we built the extra long number because it was a good joke. I just had a whole bale full of amazing costumes and people to do hair and makeup. And Jim and I just played, creating personas, constructed identities. Advertising is different. That is highly mediated by the agency and the client before you even get to the room.
Thank you.
By the way, I think we can keep this room for another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Which
Megan?
means we will be keeping it for another 10 minutes.
Well,
If you haven't noticed, Matthew gets his way.
I know for a fact that the next thing in this room is at 1:30, so I think we're staying until 1:15, and then I can talk with all of you casually for a few minutes if you want.
Hi.
Hi.
In your opinion, what is your definition of a good photograph?
That's a great question. There's something memorable about it that you can't shake. That's what I think makes a great photograph.
Sorry, I'm double dipping.
Oh yeah, give everybody
Nobody
else a chance.
I cut. Okay.
Yeah, get on down here, folks.
Sorry,
Come
I
on.
cut.
Okay.
Your celebrity photographs, there's a quality about them. They're not just portraits; they're active portraits. In other words, they're people being alive, not a static. You somehow manage to make the subject relax enough to be themselves, not a mask of themselves. I find that quite a unique talent and ability. Not very few people have that ability to evoke the true person out of. Everybody is kind of in a shell. You manage to bring them out of the shell in your portraits. Well, what's interesting to me is you spent a period of your life documenting living alive people, and then you've chose to document dead people.
And dummies.
And dummies.
Dummies and mummies.
But in that you've made them alive again. You've imbued life into dead things, and I find that interesting and admirable. So I guess it wasn't a question; it was just an acknowledgement.
Well,
thank you.
It has to do with the same thing I talked about before, that we are hardwired to project ourselves into simulacra, that is, depictions of other humans. We've seen films, all of us. I mean, I will never forget the mother character played in August Osage County, played by Meryl Streep, right? I mean, I can't forget that character. I imbued my life force into my identification or connection to that character. What's the reality? I'm looking at shadows on a wall, shadows and light and audio. That's not alive. Same thing. That's I'm trying to examine that in that work.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, do you have any unforgettable stories from your works with like celebrities and such? I was going to ask specifically about George Michael because I love that portrait you did of him, but just in general, do you have any?
I mean, I did a video for Morrissey. Does everybody remember who Morrissey was? A misanthropic, unhappy, depressive individual in his art and music. It's wonderful, fantastic. He arrived to my set for a music video, locked himself in the dressing room, and sobbed for about 3 hours. It wouldn't come out. But then, we shot other things. Then he came out and it was fantastic, right? So you just, there's lots of moments like that. Sure.
Hey, Matthew, thank you for your time. And my question is, what are your best advice for young artists and creators? For example, I'm a sixth-term fine art student, and I really want to make art, but I also know that I need a job, possibly. And what are your advice for artists in today's day and age going out of college and is on their way to finding a path that is meaningful and that is fulfilling in the arts?
A very important question, especially just on a practical level. I started showing my portfolio to get work for my future career in second term. That's why I said I went to my brother's and slept on the floor every break from school. That was so I would not go through that terrible transition that happens to Art Center students, that you've had this high point of your 8th term and you've graduated and then you're just sitting there doing nothing. That's very, very damaging. And I saw my friends in my first term, all my friends were seniors for whatever reason, and they went through that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to start right now. So there should be much more of a focus on beginning to engage with the professional community of your choice from the day you start at Art Center. Okay, that's number one. Secondly, I wrote my class, The Power of Pleasure. It has a deep meaning, that title. Yes, we invoke pleasure, the pleasure principle, to persuade. That's the polite way in advertising of saying manipulate. To persuade the audience to our product, service, whatever it is that we are selling, even if it's our art. We want them to in some way take pleasure in that. Not in an obvious way. There's all kinds of pleasure. There's negative pleasures, like envy, schadenfreude, violence. So many things are pleasurable, right? It's not one thing. That's the outward expression of the power of pleasure. But to your question, the inward is the joy you take as an artist in the things that you make. And if that's in there, if that's channeled in there, it's going to channel through that work into the audience, through that audience into others. So you have to be deeply in love with what you're doing. And I had an instructor at Art Center that said, how can you expect anybody to love what you're doing if you don't love it? So you better fall in love with something every day of your life, and I do. Every day of my life. I'm constantly grazing, searching, and I fall in love daily, minute by minute. So get passionate.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you. Kind of an extension of that. What is one of the most difficult days you've ever had with students at Art Center? What's one of the most difficult assignments you've ever been given as something that really challenged you and took you somewhere else, but you're happy about it? Or
as in my student experience,
both.
My student experience
Both.
are the ones, or my students who
both.
Oh, both. Okay. The most
And
difficult?
also, what's your favorite color?
Oh, come on.
I know. Trick question.
Okay.
Thank
Ask
you.
questions that are going to help you, because my favorite color is not going to help you. But I will answer your question. Those are valid questions. Those are complicated questions to answer. The most difficult thing for me as a young photo student at this college was that I am basically a sensualist. I don't operate in a logical way. And there's a part of photography that's extremely mechanical. It involves mathematics and apertures and a whole bunch of technical stuff that I thought I could never do that. But I did learn because of my passion. I forced myself to learn those things. So that was a big challenge. My portfolio that brought me to Art Center was handheld 35 millimeter natural light. And suddenly there I was being asked to use 8x10 camera. We were forbidden to use any medium format or small format cameras until like 6th or 7th term. 4x5 and 8x10 and dip and dunk and work in the darkroom and all these things. That was very, very challenging for me. And the workload of Art Center was, and it still is, unbelievably. The famous rigor, we called it rigor mortis, but yeah, we all have been there, right? And then the most difficult thing I've given to my students, I don't give them their final assignment, their big assignment for the class till halfway through the term. The first half of the term is a bunch of preparatory assignments. They don't know it, but they're revealing themselves to me through the choices that they make. At that point, I know enough about them through the work they've done to say, I think I should give Hannah Gucci because she's afraid to engage and she needs to rock out with her you-know-what out. That's going to be good for her. And it was very difficult, but look where she got. Okay, so I might give a student a thing that is perfect for them, like you would as pick a photographer in the professional world. I'm going to find the person that does exactly the thing I'm looking for. Or I might pick someone that for an assignment that does the opposite because I might get a very fresh approach. So yes, I will challenge my students from time to time with something that's outside of their wheelhouse because everything is the thing and the anti-thing. Do you all understand that? It's called the unity of opposites. It's a very big idea. It's a very simple idea. We are comparative creatures. Humans cannot describe a thing without incorporating the anti-thing. Like stature, there is no tall without short, whether that's people like me, short, or buildings. There's no dark without light. That's illumination. So everything in its opposite is completed. So challenging people in that same vein to go to the other side, or for me, gorgeous, grotesque, right? This is a contradiction. And it's very interesting, and it's a very enlivening point of view. I invite you to take it on.
Wonderful. We have 2 more questions.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Bill. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Psychojournalism. I went to Art Center in 1980, and actually the woman who just spoke earlier for me, she was my girlfriend back then. And we,
nice.
Our class was super tight. We're still all friends. A lot of people in my class.
Nice.
That was what I really got it from Art Center. Before it is, at one point I got to be Helmut Newton's assistant for a couple of seasons out
Great
here.
photographer.
Yeah, and through him is through Herb. My friend was assisting Herb Ritz, and I got turned on to him. He worked completely pretty much the opposite of you, except, well, in some ways, our whole equipment was pretty much a milk crate with one light in it. He was very simple, but he was very direct and exacting the way you seem to be about what he wanted from his subjects. But we, at one point, we're doing an editorial shoot up in Malibu with a celebrity, and she started telling him how it was going to go. He corrected her one time, and right after that, it was like, Bill, we're leaving. So
I'm not
that was
surprised.
that.
Yeah.
But if you could relate maybe something along that to you, kind of where you draw the line with, I know there's cooperative efforts, but anything to relate.
I mean, I don't pull a diva act on anybody. They're allowed to be the diva, not me. So I would not. I would not take the Helmut Newton approach. But there have been obviously very difficult people throughout my career. I have a lot of compassion. I think it's very hard to be on the hot seat in front of that camera. So much expectation and so much insecurity. There's a Hollywood saying, those who must be loved by millions must have a problem being loved by one. So, you can't deal with fear directly, right? That person that was telling Helmut Newton what to do was operating out of fear. If you have compassion for that fear, maybe, that's my approach, you can deal with it. You can't say, oh, there, it's going to be okay. That direct approach will not work. What will work is running a shoot smoothly and quietly, keeping stress away from that person, being prepared, being respectful, being considerate, listening to them, sharing with them to the extent that they're willing to share with you, or openness, listening. That's my approach.
Last question.
All right. Okay. I'm Calvin. Actually came here in mid 90s and then graduated 2000. So one of the things I think in Art Center that I remember the most first was we had Art Center Europe closing. So we got a lot of students from them. We protested because tuition went up. We were quite pissed about that. Remember some of us here during the time. But the most important thing was that a lot of the students went through what I think would be, at least in my perspective, golden era of the teachers that we had. So when I hear that you're teaching, I think what you just shared with us today was very inspirational for the future of the students moving forward. With the world is now in context, I actually graduated, worked here, and one of the things I took away from school that was a very negative thing was that they told me that as a foreign student, I would never be good enough to relate to American market.
Who told you that?
I can't say that. Somebody told me that.
Well, I don't believe that to be true.
Which is true.
Okay.
So obviously in my frustration and anger, I say, fuck you. And I proved them wrong. So I worked my way up all the way to become a creative director at Saatchi. And they shipped me to Beijing to run before the Olympics. So that's my way of saying fuck
congratulations.
You. Thank you. That being said, I think I wasn't expecting that. But that being said, the way the world is very global now, everything is very information heavy, but yet we know so little about everyone and everything. How are we preparing the students? Schools like Art Center, are we ready for what's to come? AI is the next thing that we're talking about, but are we actually ready as, a school, as the people we're preparing? That's my question. Thank you.
Well, that's kind of a diffuse question. I think each artist has to, challenge themselves to fully realize themselves, and that takes time. You obviously have done that. You were challenged, you challenged yourself, and you overcame that through determination. I'm certainly determined. So I think anybody that lasts through 8 semesters of this school is pretty determined. Okay? We've seen our classmates fall away. Each term there's less of us, right? So we know that to be true, and that is part of the kind of the cleansing fire of this place, right? I'm getting a little bit lost here. How do we prepare for a global future? That's just too big. We have a personal world inside ourselves that needs to be solved. And that which is personal is therefore universal. So I would say that's a clue. And AI, yes, that is the coming technology. And what can we do as a school to prepare, what's the advantage you have of going to a place like Art Center to prepare? Art history, the history of your field, theory, practical hands-on application. Nobody else out there that's just approaching Midjourney or ChatGPT has what you have if you go to Art Center. So the most important thing is frame of reference, history, knowledge. So I just want to say, before Julian takes over, that thank you, Christina Binkley, my dear friend.
My pleasure as always.
Thank you to all of you for engaging. Thank you to Art Center for being Art Center. And thank you to FullCircle for this invitation.
And we love you, Matthew Rolston. Big hand of
love you right back.
applause.
Thank you.
Yes, on behalf of FullCircle, I'd like to thank Matthew for this incredible presentation. You're always amazing every time you get in front of a group and tell about your work and yourself. We appreciate you. We love you.
Thank
Christina, thank you for the work that you did today. And everybody continue to have a great day here. And thank you for being here.